I'd love to hear what your patients have been telling you about mental health this year.
One of the things that I find positive as a result of this year is people who had previously not been touched by mental illness or having mental health needs have a growing compassion and empathy for those who have struggled for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And seeing that everyone has that vulnerability and need, and that there is a different way to access it. I've been doing online work for a long time, but COVID has actually, obviously made that there's a whole lot more access to telehealth. And I think that's a really positive aspect from it. I have certainly seen a lot more of depth in depression, in suicide ideation, in loneliness and despair, lots of existential questioning and like, what is the meaning of all this? Who do I want to be with? Making very big life decisions. And I've also seen a dedication to, as life is opening up, taking charge of their life and wanting to have healthy mental health practices, healthy relationships, making career choices, and making decisions with purpose and intention that previously, before COVID, it was just, you just did it this way because that's the way you did it. I see myself mimicking, like, we need to walk what we talk. And I've done a lots of review in my life of what do I want to be doing? What relationships serve me? Yeah. And that helps me to be a better therapist for the clients that I'm working with as well.
That's excellent. That's excellent. We've been talking about mental health this whole time because clearly we're cheerleaders and we're fans. What I want to know is, do you think that there's been a shift in our ability to talk about mental health?
I think it's getting better. There are people who still feel like if you can't see something, it's not as valid or real as if,
Sure.
you can see it. And listen, to be honest, I know that there are psychiatrists and psychologists who will say that circumstances can't drive someone to suicide, that suicide is an illness. And then there are people who say, no, that's not true. It can be a spectrum. It's controversial in the world of psychiatry, but it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't really matter as much how something is intended. It matters how it's received. Right. So, we could say forever, like, oh, well, I didn't mean to insult you, right, or I didn't mean to stress you out, or, they could say, well, I didn't mean to make you almost suicidal because of this threat, but, this lifestyle, but that's what happened. It really doesn't matter what the intention was. It matters what the result was. So I do think it's important for people to understand that that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and that there should always be access to help, and that it's okay not to be okay, and you speak up and get help if you're struggling. And I think we should teach everyone the call number, 1-800-273-TALK, like we teach our kids. Absolutely. Call 911 if you see a building on fire.
Can you give us some sort of nuggets that you're getting from your patients this year?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of depression and anxiety throughout the pandemic. So depression, lots of loneliness. I think that people just really struggle to know where to go and who to reach out to, especially when you struggled with family relationships and family was pretty much the only people that you could see. But I also saw myself working a lot with helping people improve their family relationships. I think that before we were spending so much time with work, with friendships, that we would kind of put a lot of those family relationships on the back burner. And so what I've noticed a lot is that a lot of people are really starting to repair their relationship with family over this time. Even myself, I was already close to my family before, but I saw myself really dedicating and investing more time into becoming closer to my family. So I think that helped a lot. And another thing that I see a lot is just the anxiety and of what is going to happen to me, what is going to happen to my career. I was on the brink of success right before the pandemic hit, and I'll see people in business, it's like my sales have gone down, and they kind of see themselves as a failure, and they really struggle to almost calculate the fact that there was a pandemic and your life was going to change and your career was going to change. And so a lot of anxieties and a lot of depression surrounding achievement, I think something that I'm seeing a lot of people need to work on, but I'm slowly seeing a lifting in stigma. People have really been, showing up more. I've been seeing a lot more new patients, first time therapy patients, and a lot of old patients coming back to see me. People are understanding that it has nothing to do with sanity, that mental health is really about taking care of yourself and learning how to make good decisions for yourself and be able to be resilient.
One of the most helpful questions you can ask somebody who is struggling in need of help but won't get it is asking them the question, how can I be of help to you? And I think it's really important that you understand where they're coming from and what they need. And if they say to you, I've thought about getting professional help, you can say, is it something that I can help you with? Would you like for me to help you in your search of finding a therapist? And what I'm finding is that a lot of people who have anxiety or depression or experiencing loneliness or suicidal thoughts, they don't have the energy, the attention, the concentration, the memory to be able to follow through, to be able to look for a provider. So assessing a person's readiness for therapy is such an important part of the equation. And then offering the help to do it is the second part.
Excellent. Dr. Hauser, what would you say?
Approach them with empathy and help normalize what you are seeing and experiencing with them, and share a personal story of something that you've struggled within the mental health world or seeking help yourself.
Yeah, I echo what Dr. Varma and Dr. Hauser have to say. I think that what we're really kind of talking about is learning how to be a safe source of support. A lot of times when we think about supporting somebody, we think about trying to fix them and, you should go do this. And, I don't understand why you won't do this. And whenever we do that, then we cause people to feel ashamed, or we cause them to feel like it's their fault for some reason or forced into something. So I think that the most important thing is to be able to be a safe form of support.
As I think Jen, I'm a big believer and advocate of mental wellness kind of maintenance. And so this whole pandemic, basically, I was doing phone sessions every other week or so with my therapist. And she said, yeah, everyone across the board, we have all been traumatized by this in some way, shape, or form. Some people more than others, no question. You don't go into 14 months of global fear and death and illness and disruption and loss of jobs and social unrest and all the things that we've been through in the last 14 months and come out like, yep, everything's great, never better. I've manifested all of it, by the way, from the mental apathy to feeling like, oh, I can't, my routine's disrupted, my social life's disrupted, my relationships disrupted. I mean, you name it, right? Everything. And I think that is a concern, is the mental health consequences of this pandemic, because I think everyone has been affected.
I so appreciate you talking about the importance of mental health and even what you do to stay whole. And I really appreciate you being transparent and actually in talking about that, this idea of sustenance, how we get through, how is it that we get through this? So I really appreciate that and really respect that a lot. How do you have a conversation with someone who doesn't want to take medication but needs to?
I like to say what we need sometimes is a baseline, and that our body needs time to get itself balanced again. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a wonderful thing that we live in an era where we can actually get support like this. A lot of times someone will describe it the same as like diabetes, that we wouldn't be judging ourselves and feeling we're broken. We would feel grateful that insulin or there are interventions that can help us. Why do we see that it's different when it's a mental health?
I think of medication as a very important and effective tool in a comprehensive treatment plan. And it's just one important part. There's some people who are unable to get enough motivation or energy to be able to keep a therapy appointment. So understanding that sometimes there might be even barriers to making the most of therapy. And especially if somebody is having thoughts of not wanting to live or not feeling worthwhile or feeling like they're adding value and wondering if the world would be a better place without them. Sometimes these dark thoughts, if they linger and they persist and the person has been in therapy for some time, even with me, I may say, hey, can we explore this? What do you think? And educating yourself as a consumer, understanding what your risks, alternatives, benefits are. The more informed you are, the better the conversation will be with the physician. And also remember, at the end of the day, you don't have to stay with that provider if you're not feeling comfortable, to be able to explore a conversation with somebody who does make you feel safe and seen and heard and listened to, and that in time together, you make a plan.
I would love if you guys could give your favorite resources for people to tap into that are online. Any favorite websites that you could share with our audience?
Some quick places like the American Psychiatric Association, Mental Health America, NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, and then SAMHSA. I think it's really important that people have access. At some point, they're going to make SAMHSA the National Disaster Distress Hotline. They're going to make it into a 3-digit number so that we are basically looking at mental health crisis in the same way that we would medical illnesses.
That's excellent.
There's a really reputable source for me. I like to look up things from psychologytoday.com.
I love their articles too.
Yeah,
So
I tend to really enjoy their
Yeah.
articles, and usually they're written by very wonderful treatment providers. So that's really helpful. But I also want to address really quickly that I feel like online resources, of course, are really, really wonderful. But I think it's also really important to recognize that not all people are able to have access to the internet or even know how to use the internet. And so one of the concerns I sometimes feel is that in certain communities, when people don't have access to culturally sensitive materials, such as materials within their language, or they don't even know that there's a clinic here that even will work with you, or will charge you less for these services. And so I think it's really important that the community tries harder in order to kind of show everybody that there are these services. So I think that that's actually a really huge part to this conversation we're having too, about just access and online resources.